Welcome in this session of SAP Intelligent Robotic Process Automation Overview. So my name is Christophe Puget. I'm managing a development team in RPA organization. Previously, I was the CTO of Contextor. Contextor is a French startup which was acquired last year by SAP, providing some huge experience in RPA. So what will we cover today? First is a general overview of what is RPA. Then we will focus on what is the SAP solution on RPA, and we'll have a special focus then on the connectivity of RPA provides with all the intelligent technology of the Leonardo ecosystem. Intelligent RPA is part of Leonardo organization, so we are working closely with conversational AI, with machine learning guys, with IoT and so on. And we'll finish with an overview of the roadmap and what is coming soon in the solution. So what is robotic process automation? Globally, it's something which will help you in your digital transformation of all your existing business processes. And the general approach of RPA is to work with your existing systems. You have nothing to adapt in your system. The RPA will adapt to your own systems. And we will work in general through UIs or APIs. We have two main deployment mode of or usage mode of RPA. The first, which is the most common, is what we call attended bots, or in our terminology, digital assistant. In this case, the idea is to have a bot interacting with a real user working on a machine. And so the bot is really an assistant which will remove the tedious part of the process so that the user can focus really on, let's say, the added value, to answer to the customer on the phone or take some human decisions. But the idea here is really to assist a user by, let's say, optimizing and automating part of the process. So in general, we will try to optimize something like 80% of the process, and some parts of the process will remain human. And so the bot will interact permanently with the user, and sometimes we take control to make some automations. So, for example, if you need to search a customer in different systems, the bot will search. You will search in the first system, and then the bot will synchronize all the other systems with you. It means that instead of spending maybe 15 minutes to manage a case, it will take a couple of minutes. So, of course, it can be very, very efficient. So, in this case, most of the automations will be triggered by the user himself and not by a third party. Another important usage is what we call unattended bots, or in our terminology, digital worker. In this case, the idea is that the process is fully automated. The bots are working without any human intervention. In general, the bot is deployed on a server or on a virtualized machine. And the main difference between attended and unattended is that in this case, the different scenarios and automations will be scheduled and triggered by a third-party system, which is what we call the control room. And we'll see that in a few minutes. It's very important when you select an RPA solution to select the solutions which can do both, because some RPA vendors are really focused on unattended, others on attended. So it's very important to have a solution which can do both, because in general, you will have usage for both in your organization. And sometimes we will start with attended because it's often easier. And at one moment you see, okay, this process can be fully automated, then I will now convert it to an unattended bot. If you have the same technology, the same set of tools, the same skills, it will take a couple of minutes to jump from attended to unattended. Of course, if it's two completely different solutions, you will put your scenario to garbage and completely redevelop it. What are the main, let's say, area of usage for RPA? RPA can be tactical or, let's say, strategic. It can be tactical if it's, for example, it's just to help you to cover some gaps, some lacks in ergonomy or missing features that are painful. And in this case, it's something that can be very quickly deployed to make life easier to your user. So sometimes it can be something which is temporary for a couple of months, and then you will do other scenarios and replace them. It's very powerful and interesting, especially when you have a lot of applications to work together. Because RPA, as it's running on the desktop itself, it can run and automate any application you have on your machine. So it will run your internal applications and it can automate your external applications. So all your partner applications can also be optimized and automated. You really have a transversal view of your processes, how many applications you have. In the past, we made some projects, for example, for mobile operators, and they had 15 applications simultaneously working on the desktop. And it was a big mess, really, to do the processes. And with RPA, we can reduce by 80–90% the duration of the processes, and with a better compliance, with a better speed, and with less mistakes. And also, very important topic, RPA can allow you to integrate with intelligent technologies, because you can understand that RPA is the arms, let's say, of Leonardo. As it's working on the desktop, RPA can connect to Leonardo technologies like machine learning or other things like that, and integrate and include a part of intelligence in your existing processes while you are keeping your existing applications. You don't have to migrate to all your system. You keep your existing system, but you plug inside, at one moment, a step of machine learning, for example. We'll see some examples just after. Let's take an example. This is a real project that we made 5 years ago for a big French bank. The idea is that this bank launched a new online bank with a huge success. Thousands and thousands people registered every week to create an account. But after, there was between 30 and 60 minutes per subscriber to create really the account in the system, because you have a lot of checks to do in terms of fraud. There were between 10 and 15 systems to control to create the account. So it was very tricky, very long, and the backlog was very bad. It took sometimes up to 6 or 8 weeks to have the account created. So imagine that you launch a new service. The guys, it's a success. A lot of people are trying to open an account, and they will wait 2 months until they receive their credit card. So imagine the failure in the launch. So what we did here, we were called by this bank. We created a project in around 1 month. We reduced by more than 90% the duration of so it was from 45 minutes to a couple of minutes. And so we reduced the backlog from 6 weeks to a couple of days. So of course, a huge success in a very, very short time. So it's very important to understand that RPA is very agile. You are talking in weeks, not in months, to implement and put projects in production. You should understand that RPA is done for mass deployment. It means that don't try to do RPA if you execute a process 10 times per month. Do, of course, focus on very widely used processes with high complexity, with a lot of manual steps, because all the systematic and tedious things can be automated so that the user will focus on important things. RPA is very powerful when you have a lot of applications. So if 5, 10, 15 applications, it's very, very powerful. And so of course, be careful about your roadmap, because you must be aware that your IT maybe is migrating some applications, so don't do, of course, big RPA project on applications that are more or less obsolete. The RPA can be, let's say, a tactical approach at very, very short term to reduce painful points. And of course, it must be coherent with your global IT strategy. So to summarize, RPA will help you to improve your operations. It will increase the quality, service quality, because imagine that if your customers call you on the phone and they spend 3 minutes instead of 15 minutes to have an answer to their request, of course you will have happy customers, and so you will be happy yourself. It will increase the compliance, because you can use, thanks to RPA, you can add a lot of controls in the processes to avoid some mistakes, and globally you will reduce drastically all the human errors. Now let's have a look to the SAP solution. So the SAP RPA and intelligent RPA solution is globally divided in 3 main components. The first one is the cloud factory. It's what we call in the RPA world the control room. this component is in charge to monitor the activity. So all the agents which will execute the RPA scenarios will connect to this factory and will be controlled and monitored by this factory. The factory is a pure cloud solution. SAP made the choice to have no on-premise control room. So the control room is only on the cloud, which means, of course, that you have no server to install in your infrastructure. You just have a tenant to be created in the cloud, and in 5 minutes, your factory is ready to use. So it will make the orchestration and the monitoring of all your activity. Then you have two other components. The first one is the desktop agent. It's the runtime, which will execute all the scenarios, all the automation that you want to do. It's the same product to be used for attended or unattended usage. The difference being that in general, for unattended usage, you will deploy the agent on virtualized machine instead of desktop, but it's exactly the same product. The last component is the studio, and the studio is a designer tool which is used by your development team to build your project. So in terms of deployment, when you start let's say the RPA journey, SAP will create in the cloud a tenant for you. You will download the software. In the software, you will deploy on a couple of machines the studio. You will have a small team in order to create the different projects that you want to do. So it can be partners or it can be your own IT guys. They will develop the project and you will deploy the agent. You can deploy any count of agents. For example, we have some references in France with Électricité de France, in which you have more than 10,000 bots deployed. So all the call centers have the agent running. So it's really, really scalable. You are not talking about 10 bots, you are talking about hundreds, thousands of bots deployed in your system. So globally, how does it work? With your studio, you will develop your different projects. So you can imagine that you do a project for finance, a project for HR, a project for any organization in your company. What we call a project is a set of scenarios. So for finance, you can have maybe 50 different scenarios that will be bundled in a single project. So you will develop your different project, and when your project is ready and tested, the studio will upload the project on the factory. And so the factory will host different projects for different organizations. In the factory, you will configure some groups, some hierarchies, in which you will define each agent inside one or several hierarchies. And this way, each time you will start your machine in the morning, the machine will open a secure channel to the factory, and then the factory says, okay, this machine is HR, it's a HR guide, so here is the project you can use. And so it will be completely controlled, so that the user has nothing to do. It will just start his machine, and the agent is ready to execute all the scenarios which are related to his organization. For unattended, it's the same. Everything, so the machine will, as soon as the machine will boot in the data center, the agent will connect to the factory, and the project will be distributed. Okay? So for attended and unattended, it's the same philosophy. You download the project, and you're ready to execute all the scenarios which are bundled inside this project. If it's attended usage, the people will work on their machine, and they will trigger the scenarios manually with menus, with clicks on buttons, and so on. So the difference here is that the scenarios are triggered manually by a human action, while if it's unattended usage, everything is controlled from the factory side. So the machine is completely passive. Okay, it has started the project, and it's idle. And then the factory, as soon as some jobs are available, will distribute jobs on the different agents which are running in unattended mode. So to trigger jobs, you can have some schedules which are included in the factory, or you have some APIs to plug external systems. So you can have your own BPM system, which will create thousands of jobs in the factory, and the factory will distribute the jobs on the different agents. Of course, this is very scalable, because you can install 10, 100, 1,000 agents. You're not limited so you can reach a huge scalability and also a huge robustness, because of course if one bot is out of order, the job will be distributed on the other bots. So there is no single point of failure. So let's have a quick focus on the factory. The factory is dedicated for bot management. As we said, it's a pure cloud solution, nothing to install in your premise. And in this factory, you will define some environments for testing, for production. Then you will declare some hierarchies and groups to manage all your agents. And then you will monitor all the agents, the hundreds or thousands of agents which are registered on your system. And you will register the activity in terms of jobs. So you will see all the scenarios that have been executed, that are pending, and so on and so on. So it's really here to monitor all your activity and to control remotely all your agents, especially your unattended agents, because of course you have nothing to do on the premise side. Everything is controlled by the factory. So the agent is the runtime module. It's installed on premise on each of your machines. Okay, it's not a cloud solution, it's a premise solution, it's important to understand. And as it's on premise, it can reach all your internal applications, whatever it's web or Windows or mainframe. So all the technologies can be automated. We are not talking about SAP technologies, we are talking about all the possible applications can be automated with this solution. So maybe you will have a process with 5 applications. In the middle, you will have a SAP S4 or ECC. But the other applications may be applications which are not SAP. You will have Excel, you will have Outlook, you will have your own legacy applications. Everything can be mixed together. The main strength of the agent is what we call the connectors. The idea is that we have developed, so we started more than 10 years ago, so this is of course the heart of our expertise. We have developed some connectors to automate the different technologies, so web technologies, Windows technologies, Java technologies, emulators, and so on and so on. These technologies run inside the applications. It means the algorithms are running inside the virtual machine of the Java applications, inside the browsers, and it makes it very fast. We can detect some pages in 100 milliseconds, and we are very, very fast. We are renowned to be a very fast solution. This way also, we are not at all working with position and making some mouse or keyboard simulations. Everything is done inside the technology. It means that it will work even if the application is in the background, even if it's minimized. It's very robust in this way. And you can even have, for example, 10 applications which are automated simultaneously on the same machine. Okay? If, for example, you need to collect, you want to get all the data from a customer, you search the customer, for example, in the SAP system, and then the bot will start and will collect all the data from the SAP, and in parallel, will start all the other applications and will search everything in parallel. So you can imagine that instead of spending 15 minutes with 2 minutes in each application, the bot in 30 seconds will be able to collect all the data from all your applications. And this is, of course, very important when you think about RPA to do robust solutions and fast solutions, because potentially it will be launched several million times per month. So we can work in parallel, or we can work in sequential order, of course. The scenarios, you can do very complex scenarios or very simple scenarios. In general, what we do, if we have to handle several applications, we'll do some scenarios dedicated for each application. And after, we'll have a master scenario which will federate the other scenarios. So, for example, you can launch a search in SAP ECC plus another in, I don't know, in Google Gmail, plus another in any kind of application, and everything is done in parallel, and you have just a scenario which will synchronize and federate all the data which are retrieved. You can have also scenarios which call APIs. You can call any kind of REST API, SOAP API, whatever you want, and you can mix all that together. So you will define your scenarios, and then you can plug them all together and change them all together. It's very important because you can do a lot of reusability in your different projects. In terms of security, it's very important as you have an hybrid solution with a mix of cloud and premise. Security is, of course, essential. And as soon as the agent will start, it will open a secured WebSocket with the factory, with the cloud solution, so that the cloud and the premise can discuss in both directions. You can also, if you want, especially when you do attended scenarios, you can build some pop-ups or UIs that will enrich the user experience. It means it's not only pure automations, it's really an assistant. So what you see, for example, on the right is a panel that we developed for the project in the bank I talked a few minutes ago. And all the application could be launched very quickly with a single sign-on, and everything was included in the project. And you had a visual feedback of all the steps of the scenario, potential issues. So it's very, very powerful. Here again, to mix, let's say, automation and assistance. It's what makes your project really, really efficient. So let's have a look now to the studio. The studio is used to develop your script. You will install it on a couple of positions. You will train a few people to build the scenarios for your company, and then with a couple of people you can build tens and tens of different scenarios for all your organizations. There will be 4 main steps. The first step will be to capture all the pages that you want to automate in your scenarios. And then you will declare with some criteria. For example, you will say, okay, I want to log in on SAP, so I will declare the login box, the password box, and the button to validate, for example, quite simple. You will use some IDs or criteria which are internal, which are, let's say, DOM in the HTML document. And here again, we don't rely at all on the position. It means that if in the next version of your product, the CSS or the application has been completely rebuilt, most of the time the scenario carry on working because we are using IDs or things like that which are internal inside the browser, inside the HTML structure of the pages. It's the same for Java, for Windows, and so on. We have some criteria which are common to the different technologies. What is interesting also is that working this way, so we are the only RPA vendor to have this approach. Working this way, it makes the maintenance free easier, because if in the future your applications changes, the studio will be able to quickly detect what is not yet compliant in terms of criteria, so that you correct very quickly your declarations. And as soon as your declarations are done, they can be reused in tens and tens of scenarios. So, of course, here again, it's very efficient for the long run. As soon as your pages are declared, you will use the workflow designer to graphically design your workflow. So you will drag and drop all the pages that you want to work in, and then you will drag and drop all the actions, the clicks, reading, setting values, and so on that you want to do. We have, of course, we have tens and tens, or hundreds and hundreds of activities that you can drag and drop to automate the pages, but not only for that. We can work with Excel, we can work with files, we can call web services. So you have all the bundles of activities that you can drag and drop for your design. In the end, the designer is just a graphical assistant to make your life easier, but in the end, it will generate some JavaScript, because in the end, what will run on the runtime is only JavaScript. So for advanced usage, you can switch to the what we call the advanced JavaScript editor, and this way you can add some customized or complex stuff that you want to include in your project. So if you have, for example, a complex calculation to do, like algorithm, I don't know for which reason, of course you won't do that in a graphical way because it will be very complex. So you can add your own library. You can search libraries, algorithm on Google. You will find some people who build this algorithm, and we can put it in your own project. So it's very easy to add some new features in your system. So all our agent is based on a JavaScript engine with a framework that we have developed. This framework is enriched progressively. For example, we are adding some libraries to call the machine learning APIs, the S4 APIs, Google translation, I don't know, whatever. You can add so we are progressively adding a lot of libraries to add some, let's say, high-value services, not only the low level. And you can add for your own systems, you can add your own library. So if you have your proprietary system with APIs, you can build a small library which will be used to access all your APIs, and then it can be reused in all your scenarios. And last point, you will have a visual debugger inside the studio, which is also very important because when you are working with complex scenarios, as I told you, we made in the past some scenarios with 15 applications working in parallel. So imagine that it can be very complex to troubleshoot, and we will see it in action in a few minutes. So how all the components work together. First, on the left, you are designing your project with your studio. You use the graphical assistant, you declare the pages. In the end, it's just a bundle of JavaScript, which is packaged. So in this package, the studio will build a package, which is a set of JavaScript files from your project, from our SDK that we provide, and also for all the pages that you have declared. And this package will be then published on the cloud in the factory, and then the factory will distribute the different package to the different agents. Each agent will receive, of course, the project that is supposed to execute. So let's see a quick demo on this. So in this example, the idea is a very simple case, typical use case of RPA. In this example, the idea is we get from Outlook, we search in Outlook emails with Excel files. In this Excel file, we will extract some sales order. The sales order, for example, if we have 100 lines, we will create 100 jobs on the system, and then the factory will distribute the jobs to be individually executed on one or several bots. Okay? So to do that, we have created a first scenario, which is just in charge to open the Excel, loop inside the Excel, and create the jobs. So it just takes a few seconds to open and to create the jobs in the factory. Okay? This is the first. So we open the Excel, we read the content of the Excel, and then we loop to create the jobs. Okay, that's very simple. On the right, you see that we can modelize all the data structures that we will use, because here we are working with purchase order or sales order, and so we have modelized all the different fields. And in this scenario, we create purchase order object, we fill the value with what we retrieve from Excel, and this is sent to the factory. What we call a job is very simple. It's just a scenario plus an input structure to be used as input of this scenario. This is quite simple. This is what we call a job. And so a job is distributed to a bot, and the bot knows which scenario to start and which data structure to use as input for this scenario. Here we see another scenario. So in this example, we are using ECC. Here you see the macro workflow. We start ECC, we log in, then we navigate in the different pages, and we set the values in the different pages. If we double-click on a page, for example this page, you can see inside. Here you see in this step, we have just drag and dropped values and so all the script is generated on the fly by drag and dropping all the actions in the different pages. Okay? So let's start it in debugging mode. Here you see the debugger. I start the scenario. The first scenario is started. We got from Excel, we found an Excel, from Outlook, we got an Excel file, and we created the job. So you see it lasted maybe 5 seconds. All the Excel was read, all the jobs were created. And a few seconds later, as I'm the only bot connected to the platform, the jobs are sent to myself. But of course, if there were several bots, of course the jobs will be distributed. And then the first job is started. I've received a job to create a sales order. So the agent started, ECC, logged to ECC, and then is creating the different sales order in ECC. On the right, here, you see the picture. So on the left, you have the real application, and on the right, you see the debugger with the visual representation of what is being done. What is interesting is that here you see the execution in real time, but you can also see it afterwards offline. It means that I can activate the recording on a machine, and if I have an error in my script, in my scenario, so my scenario fails, I can retrieve the recording, and I can replay it remotely on my studio to understand immediately what happened and why my scenario failed. So this is very important for the troubleshooting, especially when you are doing the acceptance. It means you have a first release of your project, real users, beta testers are testing your project, and sometimes they face some issues. You can troubleshoot this way and understand exactly why your scenario fails in some conditions. Here again, RPA must be very robust. So very often the standard case is easy to implement, but at one moment you need to understand all the possible cases that your user will meet in the real life, and every error, possible error should be finally handled by the project. And you see that in a real RPA project, maybe your team will spend 70% of the time to implement all the error case rather than the nominal case, which is, let's say, the simple way. So here again, it's important to have a solution which is very flexible and very powerful to be able to handle all the cases. So that's it for this demo. Let's carry on. So here, up to here, we have talked about traditional RPA. We are just making some automation through UIs or APIs. But at this stage, we don't do intelligent RPA. Now let's see what SAP, thanks to the Leonardo portfolio, can bring to RPA. To well understand the role of RPA in Leonardo, RPA are the arms of Leonardo because they are on-premise. They have access to all the customer applications. And so Leonardo is the brain, machine learning is the brain, conversational AI is, this is, let's say, the mouse or the ears. And RPA is the arms that will allow you to plug the intelligent stuff inside your existing system. So this is a global picture of where we are and where we go. What we have today, so is the bottom part. You have the desktop studio to design the project. You have the desktop agent, which is deployed on for attended or for unattended usage. Okay, and you have the factory. This is the existing infrastructure. What is coming soon? So I will show you just after in the coming weeks. We are plugging the RPA factory on conversational AI, so that you can trigger jobs and launch RPA project scenarios from a chatbot. We are plugging BPM also on the platform so that you can make some scenarios which are a mix of BPM processes with RPA scenarios. We are plugging also RPA with machine learning, and so all this is being plugged together with the platform. Okay. We are also working, but for the moment it's in the roadmap, it's not yet available, on a cloud agent, which makes that, for example, if you imagine that you have a system, you want to create 1,000 sales order in SAP S4, so in the cloud version of SAP, what you will do eBuddy RPA, you will trigger a job on premise to get the Excel with all the lines. You will create your 1,000 jobs in your system, and then everything will be executed in the cloud. So of course you don't need to go back and forth between the premise and the cloud if you just, in the end, to execute automations of cloud applications. So the idea is to have an hybrid solution. When you have to work with, let's say, premise applications, so ECC or your native applications, you will use the desktop agent, so on-premise. And when you are working with cloud applications, it will be executed in the cloud. And you can mix this way all the solutions together, and it will be the same way to develop the scripts. I mean, whatever you develop for the desktop agent or for the cloud agent, it will be the same skills, the same studio, everything will be done together. Let's see an example of intelligent RPA. This is the most basic sample that we can provide to help people to understand what we have behind intelligent RPA. The idea is to use machine learning to recognize unstructured documents. So in this example, the idea is that we'll have Outlook and some emails with invoice inside these emails. These invoices are simple PDF files and they are unstructured. It can be invoices from different sources. So traditional RPA cannot work. You cannot recognize in a smart way the different fields in the document. So what RPA will do, RPA will search in Outlook, find all the mails with PDF, extract the PDF, and then RPA will upload the PDF invoices to the machine learning. The machine learning will then be trained to recognize these invoices and extract all the pertinent fields inside. And we'll send back the fields, and then with structured data, the RPA can, for example, create the invoice in SAP S4, SAP GUI, or any other application. Okay? So here you have a mix of RPA plus machine learning, and the RPA, again, are the arms who can make them work together. So let's see that in action. Here you see the scenarios that have been, so here you see an email with a PDF inside. And so it's a basic PDF with an invoice inside, okay? Now let's look at the project that we have developed. We have two scenarios in this project. The first is the macro scenario whose job is to search emails in Outlook, get the invoice, upload the invoice, what's the results. And when it gets the result, it will call a second scenario, which is, in this case, is to create the invoice in SAP S4. So this is the second scenario, and you see it here. Okay? So let's see this in action. Debugger as agent is starting. Now let's test it. So it goes very quickly. You see, just make a pause. Here you see that we have we found an email with an invoice inside. We get it, and 1 second after, we upload it to the machine learning. And then we interrogate every 5 seconds the machine learning until the document is processed. So we loop once, second times, and then third time it should be okay. And now we launch the last scenario, which is to create the invoice inside the SAP system. Okay? So here you see a simple integration of machine learning with standard RPA. We have developed some libraries to work with machine learning. It means that you just have to drag and drop 2 activities in your scenario, and you will call the machine learning services. It's really drag and drop, and we hide all the complexity of calling different web services, REST web services with token management. All this is hidden in the library. You just have one activity to drop in your scenario. Okay?
What does it do if it comes across an error?
Sorry?
What does it do if it comes across an error? Like, say it can't open a PDF file or it can't log on.
You mean handling the errors?
Like for errors, what does it do with errors?
Here it's you have to handle it. So if you don't find any Outlook emails with a PDF, then you stop. You stop, and the scenario will be restarted later on to search if there are some emails. So you have to handle. Here, this is just for a demo, so we just implemented the nominal case, but in the real life, you have to handle all the errors. But for the simplicity, we didn't do it in this example.
So if there's 1,000 emails and one of the PDFs are corrupt, you can't open them. Say out of the 1,000 emails, one of them you can't open the PDF. What's it going to do? What's the bot going to do?
You can handle the errors, no problem. You skip it. In fact, we search email with a given title, with a pattern in the title, to filter, because we know that all the emails have this title, a certain pattern to filter, and then we try to extract some PDF inside. If you don't have PDF or if it's not valid, it's skipped and you carry on. So here again, it's a simple case, so we don't manage errors, but in the real life you have to implement the different error cases. So let's see other capabilities of the IRPA solution. Here we see the interaction of chatbots with intelligent RPA. Okay, so this is a demo that we developed, and it will be available in October in the system, in the next release. So we have developed some API triggers and notifier so that you can plug external system on the platform. So in this case, the example is that I want to order a new PC or a new mouse, for example. I will interact with a chatbot. The chatbot will ask me at the end to confirm the order. Are you okay to order this machine? And if I approve it, then it will trigger a job in the system. So a job is created in the system. And a few seconds later, it will be distributed to an available bot. So it's an RPA scenario, which will create the order in, for example, in SAP S4. And then a notifier will notify the chatbot that it has been done, and then you will have confirmation that your order is placed and ready for order. Okay? So using these triggers and notifier, you have a huge set of possibilities that are open to integrate IRPA with your own systems, BPM systems or otherwise. So here on the right, you see how you can configure on the factory side a trigger for the chatbots, and also a notifier which will be sent back to the chatbot. Okay? So here again, everything is exchanged through data in JSON format between all the systems, so that you can have information from the chatbot. It will go to the agent and so on. So all the data are then transferred. Another interesting feature which will be available in October is what we call business activity monitoring. Here the idea is that you use the agent to collect data, or for example, response time of your application. So to take an example, I have a partner application. It doesn't belong to me. I want to measure the response time of this application. So in my script, I can add a start point, for example, when the user clicks on this button, and the endpoint when the result is displayed. And so I will measure with a precision of a few milliseconds exactly how long it's really perceived by the user, because it's measured, of course, on the real system, on the application. And so you can then collect all this kind of data, and you can make some statistic about the usage of your application or the performance of your application. You can measure whatever you want. It's let's say a toolkit, so you have infinite possibilities to use it as you want. You just have, it's what we see here, you just have some notification to insert inside your script to trigger, let's say, and measure the different things you want to get. And then you will have some reporting based on the process visibility, which is an SAP application used for the reporting. Another important thing that we are also including in the next releases are the integration between RPA and BPM. So as RPA and BPM are not at all in competition, on the contrary, they are really complementary, because BPM is really dedicated to handle long-term process. A BPM process can last several days, maybe, because you can have some validations and different back and forth with different users and so on. While RPA is really done to, in general, RPA scenario can last 30 seconds or 1 minute. It's very fast and very sharp on the detailed stuff. And so it really makes sense to have a long-term process which will trigger RPA scenarios at different stages. And so you have the power of RPA plus the power of BPM. Here you see the design of the BPM designer. So for the moment, it's not yet integrated. You have one designer for the BPM and one designer for the RPA, but in the future, all this stuff will converge in a single experience. So let's see it in action. In this example, we have implemented an RPA scenario to create a kind of account. Okay. So my project is ready. I export it and I publish it on the factory. Okay? So this is done here. It's imported. Okay. Now expose the interface of this scenario because of course I have to know which data I am supposed to provide as input in this scenario to be triggered. And then this is deployed and this is ready for execution. Okay? I activate some API so that I can trigger this scenario from an external system. Here you see the payload. This is the interface of my scenario. This is the different fields that I have to provide so that it can be created in the system. I also declare a notifier to send back the result of the scenario, RPA scenario, to the BPM system. And so I provide the interface that is weighted by the BPM system. Here I design the BPM scenario, and what you see on the left, the first box is a triggering of the RPA scenario from the BPM system, and the second, here the second box is the notification to, let's say, awake the BPM process. Okay? And then, as soon as in this example, as soon as the RPA scenario has been executed, a mail is sent to the manager to approve the account creation, and if it's approved, a mail is sent to the customer to say that account is ready. So here you see exactly a simple example of integrated BPM with RPA. So let's see it in action. Okay, I start. Okay, now I start it. So in the BPM system, you display a form with all the data to be created in the system. Then, so here you see it's on the same machine, but of course it should be another machine. It should be an attended machine in charge of executing the RPA scenario. The RPA scenario was executed. It lasted a few seconds. Then an email is sent to the manager for approbation. So the manager can reject or approve. So here it's approved, and then an email has been generated for. So this is the BPM part to be sent to the end user. So here you see a simple example of integrating BPM and RPA together. So to summarize, with the RPA, you will have, let's say, a robust and fast solution working with many technologies. So we are not talking only about SAP technologies, but also with any kind of application that you have in your ecosystem. We have developed progressively new plugins and new modules to optimize, of course, the automation of all the SAP world. Because we have now libraries to call the machine learning APIs. We have added some new modules to optimize the automation of all the Fiori applications, so the SAP web applications. And so progressively, we are specializing, of course, to be the best RPA tool for SAP technologies, of course. But don't forget that it also works with all your existing applications, whatever they are SAP or not. We have, let's say, a workflow designer to help you to quickly design scenarios, but also an advanced JavaScript, which makes that you have a very, very powerful tool that you can customize according to your own needs and requirements. We can easily plug it to the machine learning for intelligent OCR, so it's what we saw with recognition of PDF documents. We have also the integration with chatbots, as we saw in the example. We have business activity monitoring, which is collecting data, for reporting on your activity, and integration with SAP workflow, which is a combination of BPM and RPA automations. Okay, so just before the question, just think I want to mention, all the documentation of this solution is available online in the help.sap.com. So all documentation for factory, studio, and everything is available online. We have published in September a first open SAP course. We had 15,000 people registered on this open SAP course, so it's a huge success. We are very happy. This is the first course, which is just an overview, so it's something which takes maybe 2 or 3 hours. Not more. It's not to train you on the solution, it's just to give you a very good overview of what it can do and the main concepts. And we're preparing a big training online, which should be available in November. And this is a complete training on the solution. So after this training, it can last 2 or 3 days, so it's a big training. You are supposed to start your own automations. If you want to contact us, send an email to rpa@sap.com. Of course, we'll be happy to take contact. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Of course, we have a YouTube channel on which you will find a lot of tutorials or demos of what RPA can do.